Douglas County Board of County Commissioners business meeting. We want to welcome any of you who are at the Douglas County Courthouse or joining us online. I just want to pass on a bit of information regarding how we'll run our meeting on Zoom during this time of social distancing. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share the screen with the call. Participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet. All participants will be entered into the meeting with their audio muted, meaning the commission and the public will not be able to hear you. Presenters will unmute when their agenda item comes up. We ask that all online presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their lines when not speaking and introduce themselves each time they speak. If you have a public comment on an agenda item or under regular public comment, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom. Staff will call on you and unmute you. We ask that speakers give their names and addresses for the minutes. The county reserves the right to shut off the microphone and remove any speaker from the meeting if they are vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The chat function has been disabled and a recording of this meeting will be available on our website after the meeting. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. We just had a wonderful work session with folks focused on prevention and behavioral health initiatives throughout the county. And we are starting with our first agenda item, the Day with A proclamation to declare February 2021 as Engage Douglas County Recognition Month. And once I get that pulled up, I will go ahead and read our proclamation. So, whereas substance misuse and mental illness affect individuals, families, and our communities in Douglas County, and whereas it is imperative that a coordinated and collaborative approach by community partners address these issues, and whereas the Engage Douglas County is a coalition of individuals and partner agencies to support behavioral health prevention work, and whereas community coalitions are recognized as a key resource to solve challenges at the community level, and whereas Engage Douglas County is supported as part of Douglas County behavioral health initiatives, and whereas Engage Douglas County recently received notification of a federal drug-free communities grant to enhance behavioral health prevention initiatives, whereas by joining together, we can prevent the preventable. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County hereby proclaims February as a recognition month for the work of Engage Douglas County to provide safe, supportive environments for our young people, making a visible statement that the county is strongly committed to prioritizing prevention and calls upon the residents of Douglas County to join with us in learning about and teaching others ways to keep our youth safe and healthy. And I believe we have some representatives from that group, if you all would like to share anything with the community.
I'm going to turn it over to Lori Alvarado from DECA.
Good evening. I just wanted to take a minute and number one, thank the county for the prevention funding that comes through as part of the behavioral health leadership work, the behavioral health comprehensive work that has funded tremendous work that you all heard about earlier in your study session. And it is that work that has allowed us to attract the federal funding that we have received. It is for $125,000 per year for the next 5 years. It does really highlight the work of Engage Douglas County, which is a community coalition that is required to gain this funding, as well as it has to be based on data that we have collected from various facets of our community, both survey and focus groups and learning communities. And it also is just focused on evidence-based practice. So as we begin to put together plans for this particular funding, you will begin to see more and more strategies that will be focused on all ages of the lifespan as we think about prevention of substance abuse as well as promotion of mental health. So we at DECA are very excited to be, we're not in charge of this, we're simply the fiscal agent for helping move this money through the community and partnering with many of the agencies in Behavioral Health Leadership Coalition to accomplish the strategies in this grant. And we are very grateful for the opportunity to represent the community in this way. So just wanted to highlight a little bit of information about our federal funding that we did receive notice of just about 3 weeks ago.
This is Commissioner Portillo. It is fantastic news that the federal funding is following such good work by this group and this coalition. So wonderful to hear it. Bob, Anyone else have comments, or do we have any other comments or questions from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Kelly. Just congratulations. It's really great work. It's neat to see all the work that you've done pan out with this, and that we have not only the recognition, but funding to keep the work moving forward. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. And it's really congratulations to a whole lot of people. So I will accept that on behalf of an entire group of folks who are dedicated and committed to this work.
Well, thank you all. We really appreciate it. And we will move to our consent agenda. We have 2 items on our consent agenda. Would either of the commissioners like to remove anything from the consent agenda?
No, thank you.
Sarah, do we have anyone in the courthouse with you?
We do, but I don't believe we want to remove anything from the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have anyone online that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Commissioners, this is Robin. I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
And we will move forward with our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Item 1 on the consent agenda.
I will second that motion.
And all of those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 And we will move on to our regular agenda. The first regular agenda item 3.1, Planning Department, consider site plan SP 20-00451 for equipment sales and services at 1493 Highway 40. Sarah, do we have a presentation for this item?
Yes, I believe Mary Miller will be making the presentation for us.
Fantastic.
Good evening, commissioners. I will start sharing my screen. I'm Mary Miller, City County Planner. This is a site plan which proposes to redevelop the former airport motel property at 1493 Highway 40 into a light and heavy equipment and agricultural implement sales and repairs service business. The property is located in the southwest corner of Highway 40 and East 1500 Road. The airport motel parcel currently contains less than 1 acre, and this will be expanded with this project through an exemption through our subdivision regulations called the Land Combination Survey, which means if you have a vested parcel, you can add land to it, and the vested nature just extends to the new boundaries. So this is a general approximation. The blue lines show the parcel as it is now, and the dashed line shows the general idea of just how it will be expanded. And one of the conditions of approval noted in the staff report is that this expansion, the land combination survey, needs to be recorded before this is released, before the site plan is released for building permits. And as I mentioned, it currently has less than 1 acre. It'll have about 2.5 acres when the expansion occurs. The GB, General Business Zoning District, requires a minimum of 15,000 square feet per parcel. However, the regulations note that additional area might be needed to comply with the Douglas County Sanitary Code. And the Lawrence Douglas County Health Department reviewed these plans and indicated that this area would be acceptable. It has an existing septic system that it will use. They did note that if plumbing is proposed in the new building, then that may require changes to the septic system. So some of the buildings that are currently used for the airport motel will be retained. The one on the left in this graphic will be the office for the new use, and the one on the right will be repurposed. It'll have some changes made to it, and it will serve as open display area. So this kind of shows the site plan, how things are going to be laid out. The red areas are the two buildings that will be retained. In the southwest corner is the new 4,800 square foot building shown in blue. There'll be numerous display areas throughout the site for the agricultural implements or the equipment, and these are highlighted in pink. These will all be grassed areas except a small portion to the east of the office, which will be a concrete. There'll be existing trees. You'll see the existing trees on the motel property are shown with the smooth outlines. These will be retained, and this will provide a nice buffer and a nice appearance from the Highway 40. New trees are shown with the jagged or bubbled outlines. These will primarily be along East 1500 Road and along the driveway, and then on the interior of the site to create a pleasing appearance and also to provide some buffering from 1500 Road and from the residences to the east. Currently, the property has 3 very large access points on Highway 40. Technically, almost the entire property width is an access. These will all be closed with this project, and a new access point will be installed on East 1500 Road at the very southeastern corner. And this location has been approved by the county engineer. The property lies outside the city limits of Lawrence, but the Lawrence Fire Department answers fire calls in Grant Township. And so while the fire code for Lawrence does not apply, the fire code official did review the site plan and worked with the applicant, and he noted that the layout and the design is acceptable. Whoops. The zoning regulations have a list of criteria that we look at when we review site plans. One, to confirm that the use is permitted and the proposed uses are allowed in the general business district. We need to make sure the property is a vested parcel. And as I mentioned with the land combination survey, the parcel size will be enlarged, but it'll remain a vested parcel, which means it has a right to building permits. That the site plan is compliant with the zoning regulations. The site plan does comply with density and dimensional standards. We have the required amount of parking. One of the conditions is just that the parking table on the plan be updated. It notes there's 9 spaces provided and there's actually 10. So that's just a technical change. One of the things that needs to be revised is that East 1500 Road does not have adequate right-of-way in some locations, some parts of it. And the applicant is working with the Douglas County Public Works Office to dedicate that right-of-way. And one of the conditions of approval is that before this site plan is released for processing of building permits, that right-of-way must be dedicated. And the dedicated right-of-way is shown on the site plan. One of the criteria is that the proposed arrangement is compatible with nearby land uses. The building, with the new building being located as far to the west as possible, with the landscaping on the east side, this does provide a nice buffer for residences to the east. Lighting will primarily be building mounted, and they did provide a point-by-point illumination array, which shows that lighting will be confined primarily to the site. And in the staff report, they also provided another kind of a lighting plan that showed how that lighting would be combined. We don't have LED standards yet. We are working on developing those. But one thing we've noticed is that 4,000 K lights are generally considered too bright. And we've asked applicants if they would do 3,000 K or less, and this applicant has agreed. And one of the conditions you've noticed on the staff report is that we'll get lighting spec sheets that indicate they'll be using 3,000 K lights. Another criteria is that vehicular access will provide for safe and convenient transportation. And with this site plan, closing all those access points on Highway 40 and moving that access on 1500 Road as far south as possible will result in safe traffic. It also wants to provide for the safe movement of pedestrians on site. Very few pedestrians are anticipated on site. However, there is the parking area just to the south of the office building, and there is a sidewalk along the parking area which connects to the building. So for what pedestrians expect to have, they do have provide for their safe movement. And one thing they always want us to look at is where will the dumpster be and will it be adequately screened? The dumpster is proposed on the south side of the new building, and it'll have an enclosure on the west and south side. The building will screen it from the north, and it will be accessed from the east. The distance from the road and then the landscaping in between should provide enough of a buffer from the roadway. And so staff recommends approval of the site plan for an equipment heavy and light, and farm implement sales and repair service business based on the findings in the staff report and subject to those conditions noted in the report. And be happy to answer any questions. And I know the applicant is available here today as well.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Do we have any questions from commissioners?
Hi, Mary. This is Commissioner Kelly. I just had a question. There was a statement on page 2 of the packet, which I'm just going to read because I don't think I've ever read anything like this, and I don't know what it means. The property within Tier 3 of the urban growth area is within the boundaries of the Northeast Sector Plan. The Northeast Sector Plan provides future land use recommendations, but also notes that the plan does not take away the right for properties with commercial or industrial zoning to develop for a use permitted under current county zoning. It sounds to me like the Northeast Sector Plan is just an idea. Am I missing something there? I must be.
Mary Miller, City County Planner. I think the Northeast Sector Plan is identifying that it's putting forth uses they expect to happen after a property urbanizes, but that if you already have zoning, and not many properties in this area do, but if you do have commercial zoning, you can go ahead with the commercial uses. It doesn't preclude you from doing. For instance, this use doesn't necessarily comply with the recommendations in the Northeast Sector Plan, but they already have the zoning, so it doesn't take away their right to go ahead and develop that way. And not every sector plan has that statement, but this one does.
Okay. I know we have another item, which I think that it just seemed like an interesting statement, and to have these two items back to back, I thought was, I guess what you're telling me is that if it already has the zoning, even if it's in conflict with the Northeast Sector Plan, the zoning that it has stays the same. Is that what you
Yes.
just said?
Yeah, Mary Miller, Planner. Yes, and a lot of times you have certain rights guaranteed you by the zoning. And so even if the long range plan didn't have that statement, if you had the correct zoning and you didn't need to apply for new zoning or didn't need to apply for a conditional use permit, then usually we'd go ahead and be accepting of the new use. You know, we couldn't point to the fact that there's some other use being proposed because it does comply with the planning approvals that it has right now.
Thank you for that clarification. I think I understand that.
Mary, this is Sarah. I guess, do we ever have examples of where we've changed the zoning to be in accordance with the sector plan?
Mary Miller, Planner. I don't believe we ever have. I know some counties, when they make long range plans, they proactively go out in the urban growth area and zone, and we don't do that. I think we recognize that most of the uses that are being recommended for after it's been annexed. So if a property needed a CUP or rezoning to accommodate a use, and that use didn't comply with future land use recommendations, our argument might be that the new use might interfere with the urban uses developing when it does get annexed. And I don't know if I answered your question, if I kind of lost track.
Mary, this is Commissioner Reed here. I was wondering if we got comments late in the day to the commission from somebody who is a neighbor, and I specifically, if you were able to provide any context, or maybe Sarah can too, or even Commissioner Kelly from his experience, about the history of the protest petition that is related to this conditional use permit. And I guess if you can help me understand that a little bit. I know that's not a total question, but comments were made about there being a protest petition and this CUP being and I was just wondering if you can help me understand that a little bit.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I believe that that's for the next agenda item, not for this agenda item.
Nope.
Yeah,
I
this is just the site
apologize for
plan.
conflating the two. I'm sorry about that, Mary.
No problem.
Mary,
Sarah, do we have, oh, Go ahead, Commissioner Kelly.
Mary, the new building, what's our total, did we add to total impervious square footage here, or did we reduce? It sort of looked like we reduced the total impervious square footage, right?
And Joy, the applicant, she may be able to give you the figures. I know it's been kind of a switch. We take away some buildings, we're
Yeah.
adding a building, and then we're adding some pavement. So I don't have the, but she may have those.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up the site and zoom in for a minute. So give me a minute and I'll tell you. Our existing impervious area, well, since we're increasing the site, our total impervious area would be 6,507 existing. That's with both parcels, parcel when it's all said and done. And then our new impervious is 649. And did you ask for pervious as well? Or just
I'm just trying to get a sense whether water is a key concern in this area, right? And so I'm trying to get a sense of, are we increasing impervious surface or are we decreasing impervious?
we are our total, yes, so we are increasing. We were at 6% and we'll be at 21%.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Do we have any other questions from commissioners? Sarah, do we have anyone who will public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, we do. I'll have her come forward. So you can stand there or you can get a seat, whichever you want. They can see you. Please speak up, state your name and address for the record.
Do the best I can under the circumstances. My name is Natalia Lowther, and I'm a resident landowner on North Street, but my property goes to I-70 Street and adjoins the Maple Grove tributary that drains that whole area. I am hoping that underscore Commissioner Kelly's concern about the increase in impermeable surface here. And I would like to be reassured that stormwater will be managed on site instead of adding to the already existent flooding problems on my land during wet seasons. We had a dry season in 2019, but in 2020, my land was partly underwater a number of times. So that's my comment, is that I really hope that stormwater management will be considered seriously. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Thank you for the comment. Mary or Joy around stormwater?
Have an infiltration basin plan for the site. It is back behind the building. It wasn't on the latest site plan that we turned in, but I have it on my screen over here now. With the revised plan, it'll get to Mary. But Dean Grobe with Grobe Engineering did the study, and the infiltration basin has been designed to capture the added runoff volume generated by the new impervious surface.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Do we have any additional comments or questions from commissioners? Or do we have anyone online with public comment?
This is Daviana standing in for Jill. And function, and we'll move you over.
Commissioners, I could also move Chad Voigt over and he could issues in that area if you'd like to hear a little bit more as well.
That would be great, Sarah.
Chad, a panelist, if you want to speak a little bit more the water issues, that'd be great.
Okay, hi Commissioners, Chad Voigt, Douglas County Public Works, and I was just pulling this up. I know Mary and I looked together, traded some emails on it, and with this site, it sits on what would be a ridge, if you can believe it, in that area, and to the east. So it doesn't drain into Maple Grove. If you look on the site plan, the discharge point is at the southeast. And so the standards that we worked up recently would not apply to that. It's outside of that sub watershed. And the collection of the stormwater, I wasn't aware there was a recent change to the site plan, but I mean, that would certainly be a good thing if it's being collected in one spot for controlling it and then releasing it. But Pines recently came through area, had another development recently. Basin is approved for the very east edge of all of that complex, I guess you could call it. And so all of that runoff will head there. And then there's a really deep area of old floodplain further east from there where this is all headed. So this would not go into Maple Grove. It would not go into North Lawrence, and it would not go near North Street with runoff from this site.
Portillo, thank you, Chad. For Chad?
I don't have a question, this Commissioner Kelly. Chad, thank you for that. I would just ask that in future plans in this area, we make I don't know where that ridge is. That I had some pretty long presentations about and really helpful ones to make me think about it. But if that could be in future packets, Mary, you know, just sort of does that water go into Maple Grove? I think that'll just be helpful for us. Chad, you're a wealth of information on this, but it would be helpful to share that with us on these.
Well, that's partly my fault. I'm sure Mary winds up waiting on me a lot. So I apologize to her for not being able to give a more complete account of the situation.
Commissioners, this is Davi. I don't see any more public comment online.
Thank you, Daviana. This is Commissioner Portillo. So any additional discussion?
The only thing I was worried about the water issues, but Chad has made me feel better about that. I would love to see sort of what that retention plan is. I wish that was in our site plan. So I know we've just done a ton of work in this area trying to control water, and are very concerned about it. And so anything we can do to communicate what we're doing to manage water whenever possible. I'm supportive of this, seeing the 9-0 recommendation from Commission, and yeah.
This is Sarah, would it be possible to get a copy of the retention plan and just add it to the packet in case others are in the public is?
I'll send it to Mary. And like I said, we have a couple revisions to show on the site plan with parking spaces, and I'll make sure it's on there too. I don't know how you guys feel about sharing screens or if you want to do that, but I do have it pulled up if you want to this evening. So
you can share it this evening if you want to, but it'd also be good to have it in the packet.
Okay, give me just a second. All right, can you see the site? Let's see. see.
Joy, can you blow that up just a little bit?
Yes. So here's our new building, and the infiltration basin will be back in this area back here. And this is the Pine site to the south.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Sarah or Mary, could one of you just help me understand kind of process here, since I know everything has already gone through the planning commission, we see their recommendation. It sounds like there are a few updates to the site plan. And so how does the motion that we're focusing on tonight kind of interact with those revisions?
I'm Mary Miller, City County Planner. The site plans actually don't go to the planning commission. They actually just come straight to you. So we have the list of conditions in the staff report, and if you want to alter those, you can just do that with a simple majority vote. So if you wanted to add the addition of the stormwater infiltration to the site plan, you can just add that as a condition, or whatever you wanted to add.
But Mary, this item did go to planning commission for, didn't it, for part of? No, it did not.
I think maybe it's the
mistake.
other one.
Yeah, one is attached to this one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, commissioners, the conditions are listed in the, they're listed in the item. And you can add to them if you want, like Mary said, or you can say as recommended by staff and to the conditions recommended by staff. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
But I do believe, Mary, the question is if the, now I'm blanking on the word, it's not reclamation plan, but plan, is that already included in those, or would that need to be added if we wanted to make it consistent, approve that retention plan?
You can add that as a condition, and that way it helps. It'll help me remember to look for it on the final revised plan. So, and it's already in the works. So I think it'd be good just to add that as a condition.
And to make a motion if it will be helpful. What I think we could do here. So I'm going to recommend approval of the site plan for 2.41 acres at 1493 Highway 40, with the conditions in the staff report, with the addition of the condition of including a reclamation plan that will be reviewed by Douglas County Director of Maintenance, Chad Voigt.
And you meant stormwater management or infiltration, right? Not reclamation.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
I will second that motion and bring it to a vote. All of those in favor? Aye. Aye. And it carries. Thank you all. Item 3.2, Planning Department consider renewing a conditional use permit CUP 20-00365 for Honeybee Septic. Sarah, do we have a presentation for this item?
Yes, Catherine Welk is the planner, so we'll get everybody into the panel.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Catherine Week, one of the planners. So I had a little bit of an issue signing in, so if there's problems, be patient. I'm going to try to share my screen real quick. See if we can get this going here. Can everybody see that okay? All right, good. Okay, so yes, I'm here to present the conditional use permit item. And this is a renewal for a conditional use permit that was issued last year. And the location is at 1462 North 1700 Road. And I went ahead and did a little presentation because I know we have a couple new commissioners that weren't here for this item last year. So this is kind of a little bit of a refresher. And I'll kind of go through where we stand with this particular project. Let me see if I can. Sorry, I'm having trouble scrolling here. There we go. Okay, so this is located in North Florence. It's just off North 2nd Street on what is North Street or 1700 Road. Surrounding zoning in the area is primarily residential to the south and the west. North and west is AG2, which this property is zoned also, and that's transitional agriculture. And then along 2nd Street, we have some commercial zoning along that commercial corridor there. Surrounding land use in the area, the light yellow is primarily single-family residential. The purple is the agricultural area that's out there. And then the pink off over in the 2nd Street corridor area is commercial. And then multifamily residential is to the south. So this will give you a general idea of what the surrounding area is like. So the key points of this particular project, so the proposed use is to continue the equipment storage heavy use. And in the AG2 transitional agriculture district, that use is only permitted by a conditional use permit. I'm going to touch a little bit on the Northeast Sector Plan, which came up as a comment on the previous project. So I'll add a little bit to that. I thought Mary answered the question well, but so this is in the Northeast Sector Plan, and that plan designates that property as very low density residential and open space for the flood. The property is adjacent to the city limits. Again, that's relevant to the Northeast Sector Plan and future annexation. The request does not include exterior storage at this location, except for the honeybee trucks that are talked about in the conditional use permit. The proposed use does not conform to the future area plan, as mentioned in that Northeast Sector Plan. This particular request renewed the CUP that expires in March for a 3-year term. The Planning Commission heard this item in January and voted 8 to recommend approval with some revised conditions. As far as communications goes, and this will answer one of the questions, we do have several letters that came in against the project, several letters in support. There's a letter from the Call Valley Drainage District that's reiterating their previous position. And to touch on that question about a protest petition, and this is provided to you just for context purposes. When we give you the staff report, we try to give you all the context for the entire project. And so when this came before the County Commission and the Planning Commission last year, there was a valid protest petition that was filed expressing those concerns, and that those concerns are carrying forward into this project at this time as well. So the review criteria for conditional use permits, and we review based on the zoning and uses of neighboring properties, the character of the area, suitability of property for the restricted uses as it's currently zoned, the length of time the property's been vacant. This particular property is not vacant. Public gain as compared to hardship of the landowner if it's to be denied, detrimental effects to nearby property, and conformance with the comprehensive plan. So this is to show you just exactly where the floodplain or the floodway intersects the property. It is adjacent to that drainage channel for the Maple Grove drainage, and it is part of the floodway and there is floodplain on this particular parcel. The use and the activity is not located in the floodplain. So this conditional use permit is only for activity that's outside of the floodplain. But again, this gives you site context. So this is a map from the Northeast Sector Plan showing those desired future uses upon urbanization. The light yellow, again, is low density residential. And then that green area is designated. Green area overlaps primarily the floodplain and floodway area. This is the city limit map. All of the shaded purple area is what is within the city limits. All of the non-shaded area is what is located within the county. As you can see, this project is located right at the edge of the city limits. And again, that's relevant for future annexation, comprehensive plan compliance upon annexation. This is the plan. It's been revised a little bit since last year. They did install the screening that was recommended as part of that original approval, the screening of the landscaping trees along the east property line. So this is to show you nothing else has changed, but they did install their screening. So staff is recommending denial primarily upon analysis. Nothing as far as what staff analyzed within the last year has changed the circumstances. This property has been in use, I guess, for the last year. They also were approved for another CUP earlier this year. I'm sorry, last year, 2020, in July, for a location south of Lawrence. The Planning Commission action, they voted 8 to recommend approval with some revised conditions. And I can put those conditions up on the screen in case you have questions or want to talk about any of them. So they're all the same conditions that were in the staff report, with the exception of change the time limit to 2 years, or under condition number 10, which they added, upon 30 days after the certificate of occupancy is issued for the south location, 24 months or that 30 days, whichever is earlier. So it would still be reviewed yearly. It would expire at the maximum in 2 years, is basically the gist of the changes to the conditions that they've made. And I would be happy to go over any details or kind of give a refresher or answer any questions. I'm sure you may have them. So. And I can pull the screen back up too if you need to talk to any of the conditions specifically.
Joy Ray with Paul Werner Architects. Can I speak as the applicant at this point?
Yes.
I can stop screen share.
Okay. This piece of property has the owners in a bit of a bind. They originally went to the county when this started, and the county would like to see the property annexed into the city, but the city doesn't necessarily want it at this point in time, and so it kind of leaves the owner wondering what he's going to do with the property. And so currently, like I said, there's trucks there with this conditional use permit. They do have the site south of town. They're working on that. It's not complete yet. So they're just asking for a little bit more time to be able to finish that location south of town. One of our main discussions with the Planning Commission is that they were considering having it, just approving it with the Planning Commission was they were considering approving it for a year versus the 3. And we kind of compromised and landed on 2. And then the reasoning behind that was just due to some hardships that the owner has experienced during COVID and some issues with their family that they've been going through. Also cost of construction and things. We've noticed, building supplies going up quite a bit. And so we asked for a little bit more time to give them as a small business a chance to be able to buy building materials at the best possible price, or at least lower prices if necessary. So that 2 years would give us time to hopefully recover and see construction costs go down a little bit as far as materials go. We just felt like having that done by this coming December 2021 might be a little tight. So we just wanted to give ourselves a little bit more room, which is where the years came into play. They're mostly the letters were in favor, and everybody's been fairly happy. We have the Natalia's there, I believe, to speak on the property as well. But overall, I think they're looking forward to moving, but they're just asking more time while they finish getting the site south of town ready.
This is Commissioner. Thank you for the presentation, Catherine. Thank you for the background, Joy. Do we have questions from commissioners? Sounds like we do potentially have some public comment. Oh, Commissioner Kelly,
So, Joy, you said that they're doing work out at the other site. The use for the site that we're talking about is for the storage of 2 trucks. Needs to be done out at the other site so that you can store 2 trucks.
Thank you. Greg is also on this call and might be a better person to answer that. I know that they were wanting finishes inside the building and get that wrapped up, but he might be the one to answer that. So we should probably hand it over to him.
Hello, this is Greg. We've started construction. To do is interior construction on it. We need to put in fencing. We need to put in gravel for parking areas. We need to install gates. We need to do services and that kind of stuff to support the building. Does that answer what you need to know?
It does. Are those things that you're wanting? Tanya is on here that is required by county to do.
I believe some of those things are required by the county. It was on our site plan to install the fencing and the gate. I think Tanya could probably answer that better than me.
Hi there, Tanya. For Douglas County. The folks there, they have requirements from both the building permit angle on the building. So, and then obviously you've got to get to the point that you're ready for final inspection and everything's complete, installation, all that. And this
Tanya,
which is associated with the conditional use permit has that type of stuff. So before.
Your audio is real rough there. I might have you turn your video off and try to say that again. We missed most of what you heard. Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there will be 2 components with the building permit. One is for the actual permit, all the rough ends, mechanical, electrical, insulation, all of those things to sign off for occupancy of the building. And then on top of that, because there's a site plan associated with the conditional use permit, they will also need to do all the requirements for parking, the gravel, the fencing, those type of things. And all of that would need for our office would issue certificate on it. Am I still cutting out?
No, I think I got most of what you had there, Tanya. When we come to discussion, that.
Sarah, is there anyone there for public comment?
Yes, commissioners, we do have public comment here at the courthouse. So
Natalia Lowther. I own 12 acres, a little more than 12 acres, just of the subject property, and which is subject to flood mentioned earlier. I'm concerned that the outdoor storage that's been ongoing at the site is not addressed at all, apparently, in this conditional use permit. That needs to be dealt with because it's in the floodplain. And I also want to raise a concern about setting a precedent for allowing applicants to wait until economic situations are favorable, or waiting for prices to go down, or waiting for other life situations to resolve planning process. Don't have the luxury of control over those, and some things in life are risky. I have not been able to control many things in operating my farm business, and not being able to control those things has never given me a free pass on meeting any requirements, or being given permission for, or denied the things that I need to do. So I really want to caution the commission about allowing for hardships in this sort of way in terms of precedent, because everybody in the county in some way is probably undergoing this year. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Portillo online for public comment.
Just a reminder, if any, please use the raise your hand function. But for right now, I do not see anybody.
Okay. So we'll open it up for discussion for commissioners. Greg, was that raising your hand to make a comment? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, it was. Can I make a couple comments, please?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Reed had talked about a protest petition that was originally filed. I just wanted to point out that when that was originally filed by the neighbor now supports the CUP and has sent a letter on his behalf supporting the CUP. I think that Natalia, it was difficult what she was saying, but yes, I think all small businesses have had some troubles in the last year or two. I know our business has been down 40%, and coupled with the price of building materials and the difficulties of getting them, those have added up. We're just easily asking for a CUP to store 2 trucks out of the floodplain for 2 years. We won't be back for another CUP for Honeybee on this property at all, because we don't want to be here. We want to move also. I just wanted to say I really appreciated the help that I've had from the county on this. Tanya and Tina have been called a couple of times, and they've come out and they've inspected the property. We've had a neighbor turn violations, but yet they have found no violation. And so I guess my question, property is zone AG2, and the proposed use of equipment storage is permitted with an approval of the CUP. So I wonder why we have a CUP available. And I think that under this circumstance, a CUP can be effectively applied to this property. I guess that's all I have to say for my comments. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Portillo. We'll open it up for discussion from commissioners. Go ahead, Commissioner Reed.
Commissioner Reed here. I guess I'm curious and about the rationale behind the staff to deny at this point. And yeah, I think that's I'm sorry I didn't have that question earlier. It's just kind of bubbled for me in the last few minutes. So Catherine, could you speak to that in specifics?
Yes.
Concerns?
So keep in mind, staff's role is to analyze for the land use. And so criteria that are specific to the land use, whether there's comprehensive plan, future land uses, context of the area, the neighborhood, the zoning, if it is permitted in the zoning district. We apply all of that into our staff analysis. And then before the elected board. The elected board then weights staff's determination based on community the platform may be. So our role as staff is only to analyze that criteria. And in staff's opinion, it didn't meet the majority of the criteria. So nothing changed as far as the criteria review in the last year, which is why our determination did not change. Some things that changed was that the county, a vast portion of the county to kind of encompass those properties in the ag district that acre minimum AG1 classifications. So that changed the zoning district of this particular parcel from just a straight A zoning district to an AG2. But that didn't impact the review criteria, so to speak. It still didn't permit this use by right in this district. It still required this use. That changed with the adoption of was some of the terminology for some of the conditional use permit uses. So this used to be classified as truck storage just truck storage. And now it's classified as equipment, either light or heavy. And this falls in heavy category. Again, it didn't change the review criteria or the impact to those were small changes that happened in this particular parcel, but didn't overall impact those that we use when we're evaluating zoning, land uses, and conditional use type permits. Was in the recommendation for denial. So I don't know if that answered your question or if you have more questions from that. So
yeah, thank you very much, Catherine. It was helpful. It was a good summary and articulation for me after reading through the things. So I appreciate that and just wanted to know if there were any particular concerns that staff had about that had arisen in the last year. It didn't seem like that outlined. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
yeah, I don't think staff really has any concerns, and I think Codes has weighed in on and they're addressing the conditions as they were laid out. But in reviewing those criteria, staff has to be consistent in how we review. And nothing in those criteria, those major criteria over the last year. So
This is completely inappropriate off the wall. It's sparked by what around the parking of the trucks on the newer property. It sounds like the trucks cannot be transitioned to the until an occupancy permit is issued or everything completely done on that new property would it not be possible to just have a additional CUP on the new property that allowed the trucks to be there? Or is that just completely not allowed?
That I don't know if they issue temporary occupancy permits or conditional occupancy permits. That would be something Tanya would have to answer. But maybe that could be addressed in that manner. That wouldn't be a site planning portion of that or conditional use permit.
Tanya Voigt, zoning director. I wish a little was on this call because she could answer, what the requirements are for temporary occupancy. We do allow temporary occupancy permits. There are several, components to that building that need to be met, and all factors need to be met. So all electrical, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide. So I do think there would be a possibility for them to get in at an earlier stage, but I don't believe they're ready for that at this very moment.
Buildings on the current parcel of land, so it's just being used for storage?
Yeah,
They've
go ahead.
pulled building permit. So they have a active building permit. I can't tell you where they, I think Greg could speak as to which inspections have been done on the site.
And I think the question relates to the North Lawrence property. What are they currently using at the North Lawrence property?
Tanya, do you want me to answer that or do you want to answer?
Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, sorry, this is Catherine Week, planner. So currently on the north property, the structure that they're using for the storage is an accessory structure. There's also a residence or a residential structure there and a newer accessory structure to the residence. Conditional use permit is just for the addition of the truck storage in the older accessory structure. So there's no construction that needs to happen for this or needed to happen when this came into effect in March. It was just to store in that additional accessory structure.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
So I want to pick at that. I was thinking we were going to go Commissioner Portillo. Greg, I see you're still here. I want to know what you're using the current, forget about the truck storage. It's what else you're using the property for. Greg, yeah, good.
Currently, we have 2 accessory buildings on the property. My brother and I own 5 farms in various sites. And we have personal machinery stored in those buildings. We have we have tillers, mowers, and just various accoutrements for the farms.
But those aren't related to the business.
No, they are not. Those are personal items that we have in the accessory buildings.
Thank you.
And this is Sarah. I speak for Tina Rakes as our chief building official, but having played in zoning and codes director in my past life, I can say through the Board of Zoning Appeals, where a applicant could request temporary occupancy or certain things on a site, but obviously there's no buildings there. And the goal, I think, here is to keep the equipment under a roof. But there is a process through the BZA that could be used in that process as well, I believe.
So maybe I'll start our conversation. I'm interested to hear what other commissioners think. I think Ms. Lowther makes a good point. And I know we've never been through a pandemic before. these can get pretty messy pretty quickly, and they're problematic. And I think you can always come up with a reason to want to continue a CUP. And if one of those is going to be economic stress, we're going down a road that I'm not real comfortable with, to be honest with. This is not the traditional maybe CUP dealing with. And yet when we worked out this deal a year ago, yes, we didn't know that there was a pandemic that was coming, but we were trying to be very responsive to, one, the Northeast Sector Plan, and two, flooding that happens in this area. I think I'm really go beyond that 1 year that we set it for, and really Portillo suggested is the way we could maybe defer this and have the applicant work with the county to see if there's some way we could either store the trucks out on the other property, if they can rent some space maybe until they can get some farming implements. That either way, we're violating our own rules one way or another. The planning department's recommending on one way, or we're going against our when it comes to occupancy. So if our intention, as Greg indicated, as Mr. Polk indicated, is to be on that other property, I would rather lean to see what we can do to get them on that other property and honor those, the Northeast Sector Plan and the Cobb Valley. Means a lot to me.
Kelly, this is Commissioner Reed here. I appreciate those sentiments and I have similar thoughts. I am concerned about a 2-year extension, especially. I think that that's to effectively triple the amount of time that was originally approved by the commission. Is a precedent that I'm concerned about setting, and think that am interested in how we continue to work with Greg and Honeybee to figure out how to make that move of the truck storage possible. And if that is the as for to that and figure out a path towards that. Commissioner Portillo, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
Commissioner Portillo, I mean, I agree, and I think the way that Commissioner Kelly framed it as if the goal is ultimately to move to the south, the property in South Douglas County, if there is a way that we can do that rather than extending the CUP, as you mentioned, Commissioner Reed, essentially the amount of time it was originally approved for, I would like to see if that's a possibility. I recognize that unique solution, but as out either way, we're having to find a unique solution on either property. So Sarah, can you provide? Could you provide a bit more insight?
Well, I have this particular piece of the discussion to be aware that their CUP expires next month. And so that would put them in a place of non-compliance currently with those trucks if they don't have a place to put them in the south location yet. And I don't know where they're at in their inspections or pulling the permit, but this particular CUP month. So just as you're having this discussion, keep that in mind.
Catherine, can you give us a specific date as to when that is? It like the end of March or the beginning of March?
So it looks like they approval on March 4th, of 2020. So March 4th of 2021 would be the 1-year expiration.
And if the commission, with the commissioner's permission, can I ask a couple of follow-up questions here? So according to the existing zoning on the property, the storage that's happening inside the accessory units and structures, that's allowed.
Is that directed at me?
Yes, Catherine.
Yes, yeah, that's, yeah, to my knowledge, if they're using it for personal storage associated with the accessory use as the residence, yes, that's allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, so it really is, as commissioners have outlined, it's about the storage of the 2 trucks that are currently stored outdoors and storing them outdoors at another location. You know, I guess I would ask that, I think we could try this, you table this item and have a conversation with Catherine and Mr. Polk, and bring in our codes official and talk about BZA and those issues, to see if it would be possible to go to BZA and ask for a temporary, you know, storage or a temporary occupancy permit for the trucks. Because I think what the building code was envisioning was really about occupancy of buildings, not necessarily about parking on the ground. But I don't want to promise Chief Building Official and Tanya and Tina a little bit more. But I think we could table this item. I don't bring it back necessarily for the 24th, given the quick turnaround to get an agenda item together, but we could certainly look to try to bring something back by March 3rd, which would be a day before the CUP, but would give a week to kind of talk through what would be to be done on that end. Not that we could get in front of the BZA by the 3rd, but I think it would give us some time to explore that option a little further. Anya, I know I'm asking you to pretend to be a codes official, but do you have any thoughts about that suggestion?
I'm actually pulling up their permit right now to see if I can figure out how far along they are in the inspection process. So if they're, you know, done with rough-ins and are downhill or up, I guess it was downhill slide, I think we could absolutely certainly work a certificate of occupancy. So I think it'll take me just a minute to see kind of where they are. I think if, you know, they're just got footings in the ground, that we may be in a little bit of a bind for getting the building ready, but then would need to go through a process to just allow them to park them not inside of a building and just on the ground. I think our office can work through that process very easily with them.
So I guess I'd suggest that, you know, that could be a possible out. Table this and allow staff to do some more conversations about it and bring it back to you. It probably would not be back until the 3rd. And I do think it's a possibility that this may not work out. And we're going to be back on the 3rd with same conversation. But I think there's some potential here to get a solution that might work.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I recognize that 3rd is cutting it very close, but I do really appreciate staff's willingness to look at how can we find a more solution to all of this. Commissioner Kelly, I also saw you were unmuted.
Yeah, my experience with CUP and things that comes up tells me we should ask the applicant if they're okay with this solution. Let's just vote on it. They've put some time into it because we do have, I think, a couple of options. One, we could defer it, and you know, Sarah mentioned which meeting we could put it at, but I do seem to remember a few CUPs that maybe we haven't got to in time, you know, I mean, and have, you know, we understood that we were getting. So the other thing is we could on it for 3 months or 6 months, but that means they'd have to come back. We have lots of leeway on how long that could be. So, or we can just, you know, rule on it and then they have to figure it out from there. So I'd be interested in hearing from the applicant's representative what they think of all the discussions we've just had.
I'm trying to work something out with the is probably a word. At the same time, you know, when they're wondering what they do with their trucks, that's another issue as well, which makes me think that the 6-month option isn't horrible, but then, you know, you turn around and you submit another application if it doesn't work out. And that's kind of how we ended up with the 2 years because we need to turn something in October. So it's not that far off. And then we have to start planning to get that turned in, August, September. So it really only gives us a few months anyway. And, in this case, that might be enough, but I think we're willing to just see what a meeting could come up with and work that out and then meet back in March and see what happens.
This is Commissioner, additional discussion. Commissioner Kelly, go ahead.
We might have some consensus here. So
Go ahead.
yeah, so I was going to make a motion to defer the renewing, of the conditional use permit CUP 20-0036 located at 1462 North 1700 Road. And I'll leave it at that.
I will second. All of those in favor, please say aye. All
The only thing I would add, I should have added, I fouled this up. When we defer things, we need to be we want to happen before it comes back. So Sarah, tell me what I need to do right here. Do I need to do the motion again? Do I need to withdraw the motion? I screwed that up.
I think you could amend your motion, directing staff to work with the applicant and to explore options related to how to address, I think you could direct them to work with staff to explore options related to other properties in Douglas County. And sometimes we do say what meeting we're going to bring it back at, so the publication is to what meeting, and we can always honor that and say, if for some reason it doesn't happen on the 3rd, we can come back and explain why. So I would also recommend adding that as well. So.
I'm motion what Sarah just said, of the county, the applicant, and see if we can come up with a resolution by March 3rd. Is that right? Yeah.
I'll second that amendment and then bring the whole thing to a vote.
Yes.
All of those in favor with the motion as aye.
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 Fantastic. We will agenda item. We're on to item 3.3, Public Works. Conduct a public hearing on the 5-year update to the Douglas Jefferson County's Regional Solid Waste Management Plan and consider adoption if appropriate. Do we have a presentation on this?
Yes, commissioners, I'm going to turn it over to Chad. Do you want me to move over?
Yes, that'd be
All right.
great. Kathy Richardson is going to join us tonight with City of Lawrence, and she really gets all the credit for this work on the solid waste every year. Have here is a review of the plan. It has to be every 5 years that we do a formal review and adopt by resolution that update. The information in your packet is a form that KDHE provided for this purpose, and work is in order. And so there's kind of two steps here tonight. You need to formally open a public hearing and ask for any public comment on the plan. Once the public hearing has closed, if appropriate, we need to have you adopt that pass the resolution to adopt the 5-year update. Kathy is sitting here and some information, Kathy, about the 5-year update and some of the process behind it.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Kathy Richardson, and I am the City of Lawrence Manager. Can you hear me okay? Okay, it's my first time joining a County Commission Zoom meeting. So we have been working on this 5-year update to our solid waste management plan for some time now. We had a few COVID in our meetings, a lot of it done through communication through email. We also had our committee chair, who was the former Public Works Director for Douglas County, step down with his retirement. So we do need to work to assign somebody to that chair position, as well as we will have vacancies in this committee. So just wanted to mention that we're going to be working on membership, those vacancies. And again, this is a solid waste management plan for both Douglas County and Jefferson County. So we meet together on that. Once we get our membership filled and a chair in the committee to coordinate some meetings, we do want to get structure back to meeting, via Zoom, so we can work on, already on our way to work on our 1-year update for 2020. So we'll have to complete that as well. So just a few updates on, some movement and changes in the committee. If there are any questions on the items that were addressed within the 5-year plan, please let us know. I did also want to mention one item that is kind of for our region. We've noticed that Shawnee County and Johnson County have both recently did a to update their full solid. So as you can see in your packet, ours was 96, which was the case with those two counties as well. And Shawnee County just worked with a consultant in 2020 to complete their new solid waste management plan. And Johnson County just in 2019 consultant as well. And the last 3 months of the Johnson County solid waste management plan committees, just to, get a feel for their conversations and how, I did ask the questions on how to their decision point to go ahead and overhaul their whole solid waste management plan and clean that up. And I think that that would be something very interesting for Douglas County and Jefferson County to. So if you have any questions, let me know.
This is Commissioner Portillo. Thank you. It sounds like we do need to open this up as a public comment.
That's right. KDHE wants to be sure that we have a formal public hearing on the books. And so we put it on the agenda 3 weeks ago to make the schedule for, make it public. And if there are people joining the meeting to comment, great.
And Sarah, do we have anyone at the courthouse to comment on this?
No, we don't, but I'm going to ask Commissioner Portillo that you formally say, I now open the public hearing for solid waste management plan.
I now open the management plan.
At the courthouse to comment.
And Daviana, do we have anyone online wishing to comment?
I do not see any hands raised.
Do you have any questions for Kathy or Chad?
I don't have any questions. Just want to express my appreciation for Kathy Richardson. She has done so much for our community when it comes to solid waste. It's one of those things that I think recognized, and Kathy has recycling and our sustainability efforts. And this plan is not a little about wanting to do a longer term plan, and just want to take the time to say thank you, Kathy, for all your work on this. It really, we are really doing great work in Douglas County when it comes to sustainability, and that's Jasmine's work, but it's also Kathy's work as well. And really
I see you're unmuted as well.
Not unmuted. Well, I'm only unmuted in anticipation of possible vote that we have to take, but I suppose after the public hearing is closed first, right?
I would just like to ask one, this is Commissioner Portillo again, I would just like to ask one short question. Kathy, you mentioned other counties that have brought consultants in to. Do you think that's something that we could consider and how need a consultant for? What would be the scale and scope of something like revisiting our plan? Hearing that the original kind of formation of the plan was from the 90s does give me pause and make me think time to take a look at it. But to hear your thoughts on what the full scale and scope of that would really.
It is a very big project to. Back in 1996, we did use a consultant to help us put that together. It seems to be, again, I've focused on Shawnee County and Johnson County, but it seems to be a practice that most of these counties are doing, which is using a consultant in solid waste management to help them pull the plan together.
Kathy, what's your sense on where we compare to them in terms of our capacity at the landfill and the true need for a plan and update? Heard that the landfill capacity years rather than shrinking because of the recycling effort. What do you think about what would that plan actually identify for the future?
The latest that I've heard with the landfill is kind of around the same number with the 85 years. I don't know if you've heard something newer data, but I do think that there have been quite a few changes. And again, even in the last years, which was addressed in the plan, just you're right, Chad, with a lot more recycling that is going on, not just in the city of Lawrence, but in Douglas County, and Jefferson County has their drop-off locations as well. But I think we still have to address, and we didn't back then, as options of reduce, thinking about sustainability moving forward. Just some thoughts.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I wonder if then, considering our sustainability efforts, if it may make sense to kind of wait a couple of years and kind of think through how the sustainability and landfill usage might come into play longer term. But Commissioner Reed, I think you were also trying to ask a question anyway.
I guess I just had a question to kind of jump off that and ask, but I suppose it's a two-part question. Kathy, in your experience with Johnson County and Shawnee examples, was there anything in particular other than just pure time and the amount of decades that have prompted those counties to invest in a consultant and really an overhaul? Or are you or Chad aware of any I guess benchmarks or directives from KDHE that prompt a reason for re-examining that? Or is it really just a voluntary exercise from the county?
This is Kathy Richardson. So for the state, they just want us to make sure that we stay on date with our 1-year updates and then those 5-year updates. That's what's required. There's, overhauling the solid waste management plan because it's been too many years. I do know that Johnson County, it was their elected officials that requested the committee to move into action. And this isn't something that took them a year. It took some time to put together. So we can start the conversation, and maybe it's not something that will, 5 years from now. But it was something that the elected officials had asked to occur. Now in Shawnee County, I'm not sure what the reason that their 2020 solid waste management plan.
Thanks for that context.
One thing to keep in mind is that Jefferson County would have to do take the same step. We're not acting alone here.
So that might be a really solid recommendation, Sarah Plinsky, is that if our group is reformed, that group consider of a more fully refreshed, more fully developed update of the plan, and bring that recommendation back to both bodies and other bodies for consideration.
Very good.
This is Commissioner Portillo. It sounds like we may be ready to close the hearing on this and motion. Am I seeing some consensus from fellow commissioners? Do I just have to say the public is closed? I'm saying that. Okay, and then we need a motion.
I'm sorry, I was going to go ahead. Yeah, we do need a motion for approval.
Okay, so I move to approve a resolution adopting the 5-year update to the Douglas Jefferson County's Regional Solid Waste Management Plan.
I will second that motion.
All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I believe that carries, and we will move on to appointments.
I know that we've got some Fair Board, this is Commissioner Reed here, Fair Board appointments, wow, for a few of our townships. I have not had an opportunity to connect with all of the 3 individuals that are interested from Palmyra. And so, but I have plans to do that in the coming days. And so should be ready to make an appointment for that at next Wednesday's meeting.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I know that there are some from townships in District 3 as well. Would it make sense for us to just go ahead and hold off on all of those and do all Fair Board appointments?
Yeah, I think it's certainly fine to wait and make sure, and we can do them all together.
Okay. I think that sounds good. Do we have any other appointments to consider? And we'll move on to general public comment. Sarah, is anyone with you in the courthouse for general public comment?
We don't have anyone for general public comment.
Daviana, do you see anyone online for general public comment?
This is Daviana. I do not see anybody with their hand raised.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Portillo. We will move on to Commissioner and/or Administrator Miscellaneous. Sarah, would you like to kick us off with miscellaneous items?
Thank you, Commissioners. You have an updated memo from me in your packet. What I wanted to point out is that we've added the Planning Commission retreat and the quarterly judges luncheon, which will be next Friday, back to back. And then we do not have a work session scheduled for next week. But then our plan is for the week after, on the 3rd, is to have a health plan, an employee health plan overview, and to follow up on some kind of ongoing items we're talking about in sort of the evolution of our pay plan. Then, and I think the way we have it in the memo is that 3:10 is that nothing is scheduled. That is the meeting we will be canceling because there are 5 Wednesdays in March, and then that coincides with USD 497 spring break. So I'll make sure that Daviana, we get that updated in next week's memo, that it's not just that we won't have a work session, we won't be meeting on the 10th. And with that's all I have for my memo, Commissioners. But I do have a couple updates I could provide related to our ongoing Unified Command COVID-19 efforts, if that would be helpful. I just wanted to announce that a press release was issued earlier today related to revised health orders that will go into effect on Friday morning. The new health orders and really raise the mass gathering limit from 10 to 25. They clarify some of the restrictions related to establishments that serve alcohol and bars and restaurants. So we increased how late those places can stay open, from 10 p.m. to midnight. Inside that, the restrictions as well. In the previous health orders, we used to say that it was a 50% occupancy or 100 people, whichever was less. The restriction of or 100 people and whichever is less was removed, and we kept it to a simple 50% building occupancy issue. Inside, though, bars and restaurants, we are retaining a 10-person sort of table or party restriction, which used to be, so there might have been some, before it was a 10-person mass gathering limit and a 10-person limit at tables and or parties together. We're going to retain that 10-person on tables and parties and raise the 25 on mass gathering. And the doctors felt like that was very important because that's a particularly environment where you're unmasked in public. So they wanted to retain that lower level there. And then we kind of just clarified some of the language related to what could be done inside, by removing the 100-person limit, what could be done outside as well, with some anticipation that maybe someday soon we might want to be outside, hopefully. And so I do think that we will continue to monitor those orders ongoing as we have done throughout the pandemic. And obviously that process is led by Dr. Marcelino, our health officer, but also done in concert with Dr. Scrimshire from LMH Health, the infectious disease doctor, and the deputy public health officer, as well as public health, in creation of those orders. Today was a joint mass vaccination effort at the fairgrounds, which was a joint effort between public health, LMH Health, and Douglas County Emergency Management. Over 2,000 people were scheduled to get vaccine today. From my reports that I got early was that it was moving well. There was, so I'm hopeful that that's how they were able to finish the day, to move forward on that. I think we will just continue to explore, based off of the amount of vaccine we get, what are the best methods to distribute that vaccine. What is the right mix of drive-through clinics, walk-in clinics, and with the elements as well. So I do anticipate that we are trying to keep our mind open to what's the best way to do that, and that we may evolve that process in the future. That's all I really have in terms of updates. So I stand for any commission questions.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Commissioner Reed here. I did want to ask you, gave us a little bit of overview last week about call center and trying to figure out what a response looks like to really have a centralized place that's fielding all of the questions related to vaccines and the phases and whatnot. And so I was wondering if you could, I know that's a big undertaking, but wondering if you can give any update to the public about kind of where that stands, and also have received some comments and questions from folks concerned about list management and kind of duplicated phone numbers or duplicated email addresses, now that we know there's a confirmation mechanism, and just wondering if we've come up with any solutions for how to make sure we're managing that list effectively.
I'll take the last one first and then come back and talk about the call center. The folks that are currently answering lots of phone calls related to the list, which include the Senior Resource Center, LMH Health, and Public Health, are working together with the list, and they receive a daily update of who has completed the vaccine interest form. So folks can call and verify that their information was received, that it is on in the it included in that pool or list of names, which will be drawn upon as we continue to receive vaccines. So each of those providers has that list daily and can answer those questions, and can help walk people through if an email address was wrong, or how to manage that process. So I would just suggest at this point in time that they call one of those providers. That then leads to a conversation about a call center. And my hope is that I'd be able to come to you today and say, we have agreement on a call center. I know that we are working on that, and we had a very productive conversation at Unified Command as to how to set that up. I do anticipate within the next week or so, we will be able to confirm how that call center is set up, who's engaged in that work, and how we're going to manage it moving forward. But I'm not quite there yet to be able to release a phone number for how we can consolidate our answering systems at this point.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the status.
Sarah, this is Commissioner Kelly. I've got a couple of things. One, Can you give us an update on enforcement? I know this has always been a challenge, but I think, I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, but I think we've all gotten some communication about some enforcement issues. And could you just sort of let us know how we're doing and remind the public what they should do if they recognize an enforcement issue?
Well, as always, we recommend if the public is concerned with an enforcement issue, that they go to the Douglas County Coronavirus Hub website, which is a great up-to-date information source for all things related to how we're handling the pandemic in Douglas County. And that they find on there, under the information about public health orders, there is an email address called phorders@ldchealth.org. I hope it's org. Okay. All right, good. And we really suggest that they email those issues related to any sort of violation that they see to PH orders. And that is managed and responded to and reported to Unified Command. So I see those reports weekly. And I know the rest of Unified Command does as well. Now, inside of that, there is a process for violations. And so what we have worked out is that the health department manages contact with an entity that appears to be in violation. They work to try to address it. If it is not addressed, additional correspondence is set. Sometimes it's as simple as, what is the closing time? And that can be kind of quickly addressed in a letter. Sometimes things are more complex and involve additional issues. So there is a multi-step process at Public Health related to sending letters and notifying and communicating with businesses and individuals related to what is appropriate with a health order. At a certain point, a health order is recommended to the district attorney for charging. And there is a process working with local law enforcement to prepare affidavits for that process. I would say that, we're continuing to talk about what's the best method to do so here, but I do think it's important to report to you all that under that method, 3 establishments have been charged with violating a public nuisance under that, and that process is before the courts. Now, for the general public, these are Class C misdemeanors. They don't have significant fines, and it takes a while to navigate our court system. So I understand that's not necessarily as quick or as immediate or as severe as response as some people might like. I think that those issues are issues that we continue to explore as to what's the best method to do so. But we are charging folks that have been in violation of our health orders, and we continue to work with folks to hopefully avoid charging and have them be in compliance with our orders. And we are looking at if there is a different tool, mechanism, opportunity to help bring about enforcement. We continue to talk and meet about that. Does that get at what you're looking for, Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, I just think we need reminders we talked about that quite a bit a few months ago, and it's sort of popping back up now that students are back. And I think it's just important to remind the public what that system is and how we do that. And I'm sure we'll respond to another question I had with the new public health order. We had Michael Davidson visit with us last week, and I know that reopening Sports Pavilion Lawrence is not within our purview, but if I understood correctly, that does give the city maybe a little more I'm not going to say latitude, but we think it's safer to have, I don't know, I'll stop there. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what I would say is that the process of using recreational facilities, and we do reference this in the public health order, have been governed by their own separate gating criteria, because we love to have lots of different ways to evaluate this information. But the gating criteria was developed for use of those facilities. Public health manages whether or not we're in what color category we are for gating, and because we are in green, that will allow them under their existing gating criteria to host tournaments. So I do think it's not directly related to the order per se, but it's related to the health of the community and the pre-existing gating criteria system that was set forth, that I do think they could begin to host some events there, assuming we stay in this phase. And I do know that that's part of the complication, is that, you know, we evaluate that the gating, the color system for what gate you're in weekly. And public health gives that to us each week, and schools receive that information, and it governs some of, you know, it influences some of their actions as they move forward. And it also influences what can happen inside this, the recreational facility gating criteria as well.
Thank you. I know we have a lot of folks in the hospitality industry who would like to see that open up, but we have to do so safely. So I appreciate that. My last item actually has nothing to do with COVID-19. It more is about our study session. So if we had other questions on that before I jump to that. No. I really appreciated the study session today. I thought they did a really great job. And at one point, Bob was referencing those parts of the Douglas County Health Plan and the specific metrics that they're trying to reach. And he pointed out about opioid use and being able to hit that one. I'm interested, you know, just a conversation with commissioners. I would like personally, just like a bit of a deeper dive into some of that data with some of those partners. You know, I know we've talked about the poverty plank and some of those, but bringing that group back, you know, with Douglas County Public Health, you know, sort of, I know they're just wiped out with everything else right now, but I would like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of that data and explore it with some of our partners on prevention. We didn't really get there today. We just sort of, but sort of asserting what it is we're trying to measure going forward, and what we've measured so far and how far we're getting. I don't think I said it very well earlier. I want our partners to be in agreement about what we're trying to accomplish here. So I don't know if other commissioners that would be interesting, or maybe it's just me and I need to go get some private consultation.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I think that looking very specifically at the metrics that are being kind of privileged in those discussions would be helpful. And just kind of seeing how that fits in the overall, how that fits kind of in our goals overall as the community. So I would be in agreement with that. Another study session looking at specific metrics.
Yeah, Commissioner Reed here, I think I would find that helpful too, more information, especially in light of the part of the conversation during that study session being that data is very hard to come by until quite recently. So it seems I was under the impression that that everything has been really data driven and information based. And so hopefully with that plan moving forward, there's some real intentional work around what those metrics are, how we are communicating them to all of the partners, since there are so many partners involved and so many different avenues in which we're trying to implement prevention work, figuring out the thread that weaves those together and how we really track information across all of those does seem important. So I like that idea, and also acknowledge that that public health is swimming in a lot of stuff right now. So I think that would be useful. And there were a lot of people there today at the study session, which I was excited for. And we didn't get to hear from all of them. And I know that was it Dee from the public health department? It sounds like probably has a lot of information that could be shared with us if we can find time for that.
If I could ask,
Commissioner Portillo, I think that also kind of brings up exactly what my question was getting at, is how do we balance crisis and prevention work? Because what we're seeing right now is our public health going through crisis. And so it makes it kind of hard to focus on the prevention work. So I recognize that this may be a longer term goal for a study session and not something we're going to get to immediately.
if I could ask for a clarifying question, I guess I'd like to, would you like, what I thought might be helpful is particularly with the new commission, is a brief overview on the community health plan. And because honestly, I don't think we can talk about it enough in terms of its work and all of its planks. But then ask, and there's a new individual at the health department who is just a tremendous resume and a real asset, going to be a real asset to our community, Valerie Carson, who has joined the health department to help lead this effort. And so it'd be a great opportunity for you all to meet Valerie and to talk about, actually, we're getting close to ready for a refresh of the community health plan. So what would inform that process moving forward? But I could tell them to specifically, we do want to talk about the data and those metrics. And so we don't want just, so but I think an overview might help put some of it in context of the other planks, which include, safe and affordable housing, access to food, and our newest anti-poverty plank, which you might want even a more fuller session on. Would that be helpful to start from there and then kind of see, and then we may need to dig more into prevention and anti-poverty as we get time with the prevention folks and as the anti-poverty plan comes together.
Yeah, ideally, Sarah, I do think an overview would be great to start. And then, I know you've got work sessions planned out to the end of time. So, but, looking at each one of those planks as we get closer to budget will help us sort of align our priorities with that community health plan. And if we have those partners coming forward, so it's not all surrounded about budget, we can understand, okay, this is what you're wanting to do. Therefore, this is what we are hanging our budget priorities on when it comes to what your ask is, if that's making sense with our partners.
I think that's really helpful. I think we can structure it, and I do think we've got some time to get that overview in, and then we can continue through this work as we talk about how that influences those different pieces. So yeah, I definitely think we could. And to Commissioner Portillo's comment about intervention and crisis, I think one of the things that the 3 planks of the behavioral health plan work is prevention, intervention, and oh boy, Bob's gonna get mad at me for forgetting the last one. Is it recovery? Yeah, there's another one. And I know we have upcoming some conversations in April about specifically the funding arrangement and the pro forma for the crisis and recovery center. So we are spending a lot of time talking about crisis and intervention as well. So I think you'll be hearing from us definitely before budget on other intervention that's happening related to crisis and intervention work as well. But I'll talk to Bob about how we can maybe bring something to you related to all of those efforts so you could see them a little more holistically as well.
That all sounds great. This is Commissioner Portillo. I just have one minor thing. I have a really incredible intern working for me this semester, Shelly Miller. She's great. And she's putting together some really great social media infographics to just kind of help educate the public on county resources. She did one on my strengths. And this past week, we put one out about making public comment and how to make public comment at a county commission meeting. And we did get a comment from folks on that, asking if it might be possible to move public comment before regular agenda items. So if folks have general public comment, they wouldn't have to kind of listen through all of the regular items before making their comments. I know there are some potential pros and cons to that particular move, but I thought it might be something for us to just kind of talk through, because I know that the county has done it. The county commission has done this in various ways over time. So maybe hearing from you, Sarah, about what are some pros and cons of doing that, not doing that, experimenting with it. That's it.
Yeah, we have held it, like right after proclamations and before consent in the past. So that is certainly an option. I think one of those things, if we did decide to move it there, it's just helpful to remind folks that if they have comment on a specific agenda item, it would be helpful to have them wait and give that specific item. So, our meetings move pretty fast, so I don't think it will probably be a problem for folks, but we just might want to add that reminder that, if you're here to talk about CUP, dash, 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 that we would ask that you wait and leave that item for that item.
Thoughts from other commissioners? Would you be open to that shift, Commissioner Reed?
Commissioner Reed here. I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Portillo. It was mentioned to me before our swearing in, actually. And I, when it was brought up to me, it made sense to me. I had never thought about it or thought about the placement of it on the agenda, but certainly understood that even though our meetings do typically move pretty quickly, that some folks who have very general public comment may not want to sit through everything, and also know that for some folks our meetings start fairly early, and so that it could be a barrier for some folks. However, we also had a 13-minute and a 30-minute meeting recently where general public comment happened very fast anyhow, should anybody want to show up. So I would be open to that. I think that it does make sense to me, and it's an opportunity to clarify how public comment functions. And so, yeah, I would be fine with that.
I'd only share that. So when we moved our meetings to 5:30, I think I want to be somewhat cognizant of staff because if we have a lot of public comment, and we've had meetings where we've had a lot of public comment, our staff can be there very late, and not all of them, some of them that's part of their duties, but others of them it's not. And so I just want to be thoughtful about that. We have the flexibility of moving it wherever we want it at any meeting. We could change our agenda and say, tonight we have a lot of public comment. We're going to put it at the end because we have these items. Tonight we don't, and we could move that around. I just think that we don't really have to lock into any one thing. I see pros and cons with both of it. So, and maybe depending on who's there to talk with us each time.
I think Commissioner Kelly raises a good point. You as a commission, every meeting when you open it up, have the right to sort of change the agenda if you want to. So if it is something where we know we're going to have, there's a pretty short consent agenda, and it'd be just nice to get that one vote done so those folks could move on their way. I think you all have that ability in the moment, in the meeting, to make that adjustment if you see so. And we used to, frankly, we used to do it quite frequently, move stuff around. So it's definitely not far in our past that we realigned the agenda all the time. So I've sort of tried to keep it a little bit more set, but it's definitely something you all could do if we get into that situation and you want to just try to get some of the simple business out of the way and then have time to focus on public comment.
This is Commissioner Portillo. I recognize that we have the ability to move things around. I do kind of like giving the public expectations for the order that things are going to run in, and kind of limiting how frequently we move stuff around. Just if someone is trying to watch for a particular item, I recognize things can move very quickly. If you are waiting to come in an hour or two and we had a 15-minute meeting, well, that's good for us and tough for you. But I think that could be, maybe we could move it up, experiment with moving it up. And then if we do need to move it down because we know we have a lot of people coming, that would be something that we would do only in the event that we have a lot of people who want to make public comment. Because we retain that flexibility, but then only need to use it when it may affect staff.
That makes sense to me, Commissioner Portillo, and I appreciate you bringing up the point, Commissioner Kelly, about staff, and I wasn't fully taking that into consideration before. Perhaps because we haven't had a ton of public comment yet in mine and Commissioner Portillo's tenure, but I know that that's not always the case. And so the flexibility is a good point, but I do tend to agree with Commissioner Portillo that wanting to keep some continuity and just use that as an exception when we really know the circumstances require it. would be a good idea. And it makes sense to me that it would be proclamations, consent agenda, and then public comments, since consent agenda can sometimes be a number of items with multiple staff that I know are waiting, just in case we pull any of those for questions. So perhaps right between consent and regular business is a good spot.
That's great, commissioners, and that consensus is what I can take to reorder the agenda moving forward. So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Thank you all. I really appreciate you indulging me in that conversation. Do we have any other miscellaneous items?
Nope.
And I think it is time to call our meeting to an end.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening.